Welcome to another episode of League One on the Rocks, everybody. We are so excited to have you listening, watching, if you guys are on the live stream. My name is Rich. You can find me on Twitter at I'm Rich, but I'm not. Joined as always by Brian. You can find him on Twitter at Mediocre Ace. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm recovering from this brutal heat wave that we have. Working outside in construction right now is not the most fun thing in the world.
I was going to ask you about that, man. It must be terrible working out there.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. Today was pretty bad.
I was in the warehouse, so I was going in and out of the building all day, and just being outside for those short bits was enough for me. So I can't imagine being you being out there, especially with all the gear that you have to wear.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's something. We'll just put it that way.
Well, looking at your screen there, it looks like you're chugging down some Bush Light.
Yeah, I don't know
I
if that's a great decision or not, but it's a decision I made.
so I'm finishing off another cider tonight, and then I'm going to be jumping into a sour that I got while I was in Des Moines on Sunday. This is from Lua Brewing, and it's one of their fruit sours. So I've actually had it already. It's a good one. So if you guys are in Des Moines, head over to that place. They have some good stuff. But enough about that. We have an awesome guest tonight. We are so excited to have him. His name is John Gross, not John Green. John, how are you, man?
Oh, I am freezing. I think I'm having some internet issues. Hang on one second. Let me move. This is live TV, and things always pop up. So let me try to swap rooms here in my apartment. Hang on one second.
It is all good. I think especially our listeners know to expect the unexpected when it comes to the show. So,
Exactly. That's what draws them in.
yeah.
All right, let's roll with this new room. Hopefully, better
There we,
Wi-Fi in here.
there we go. Love it. Well, John, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I really appreciate you guys having me on today. Looking forward to a fun discussion of soccer, of USL, broadcasting, all of it. So, thank you again.
Yeah. And for those of you out there who um, know the voice but aren't exactly as familiar with the face, this is John Gross. He is another one of the play-by-play commentators for USL Championship, League One, NWSL. I mean, he's covered basketball, he's covered baseball, wrestling, volleyball. I mean, name the sport and he's done it. Um, I'm pretty sure he's also done some Gaelic football as well.
Gaelic football, a little bit of hurling.
Yep.
Hey,
Gotta love
one
that
day I would
stuff.
love to. I'm open to doing any and all sports. I'm open to it.
Well, okay, so I want to start off by asking, so your Twitter bio says that you were the middle school geography B champion.
Yes.
And I want to know all about this story. It sounds like a good one.
Yeah. So seventh grade, Cavallini Middle School in. I'm from New Jersey, and I've always been fascinated by the world. Growing up, I'd go on some really cool vacations with my family. My dad is like, he now in his part-time job that he has as a travel agent, he finds people amazing deals, and that was him for us growing up. So we'd go on all these cool trips, and it just opened my eyes to the world. And I've always had a passion for the world and countries and learning about other cultures. So seventh grade comes. It was the first year that I was allowed to enter this geography bee because in sixth grade they, for some reason, wouldn't let us in. And I was so nervous the night before. And the next day, I ended up winning. Probably, I don't know, 50 to 75 students on stage. We had to qualify through our individual classrooms. And then we got onto the big stage. And then the 60 or 75 of us competed in front of the whole school. And I won. It was awesome. But eighth grade, repeat attempt unsuccessful.
Ah, what was the final question that
Final question. I do remember this. It was what island nation? I don't remember it word for word, but what island nation is the world leader in nuclear power production? I'll leave it up to you two.
Ooh, Brian, you want to take a stab first?
Oh,
Island nation.
And it maybe
later. Yeah.
not a leader, but maybe it was like top three. It was something with an island nation with a large percentage of its energy created by nuclear.
Hmm.
Ooh, man, I would have failed this one.
My first thought would have been Japan, but I don't think that's correct.
Wow, too soon, man.
I think this might have been the pre Fukushima disaster. But I will say, Brian, go with your gut because that's the right answer.
Oh, well, there you go.
Oh, oh,
Yep,
nicely
Japan.
done.
I
So, Brian, you could have won the Cavallini Middle School Geography Bee.
I could have, yeah. I think if it was a one question B, then yes, I probably could have. But anything further than that, and I don't think so.
Man, if you were gonna force me to guess, I was gonna say Philippines.
Hey,
So, but Brian,
close.
congrats, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You are clearly smarter than a sixth grader.
I don't know about that. Anymore, I look at my kids' math homework and it's just nope. I got nothing. Can't help you, bud.
I'm with you there. I do substitute teaching in my spare time back in Charlotte, where I lived for most of the year. And when these students ask me to help with their math, I say, I'm sorry, ask another student.
Yeah.
Well, you performed well on the big stage. You also translated that same effort into play-by-play commentating. You love that segue, don't you? Yeah, that's a good one.
Nicely done.
So you graduated from Penn State with a degree both in broadcast journalism and international politics. So I guess before you even went to Penn State, when did you know that you wanted to get into broadcast journalism?
Well, I knew that I always loved sports. I played basketball through a couple of years of high school, but I was not good enough to do anything beyond that. But I knew I wanted to stay involved in some capacity. And I do remember when I was really little, I guess 9 years old, NCAA Football 2006 was my first ever video game on PlayStation 2. It's a classic. I don't know if you guys ever played it, but
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
absolute classic. Desmond Howard on the cover. I still have it. I don't think it works, unfortunately, but whatever. I had the game, and I would turn off the sound and announce the game when I was, I guess, 9 years old. And I'm sure my parents were listening to me in the basement, like, oh, what is he talking about? But that was my first foray into broadcasting, quote unquote. And then in high school, when I realized that I could actually do this for a career, I decided to connect with three of my best friends, and we started a sports talk radio show online, which was basically just a podcast called Sportsaholics 24/7. We talked about New York area sports mainly because that's where we're from. But it was a blast, and we would call into this number on our home phones, not even the cell phones, but our home phones. And the audio quality was awful. We would get maybe my parents, my grandparents, my friends' family members to listen, and we would just talk about sports. And after that, I was like, okay, I want to give this a try. I want to do this for a living, and I've pursued it ever since.
Nice. Sportsaholics 24/7 until your parents made you go to bed.
Basically. And I actually think that you can go online and look that up and find some of our old episodes.
Oh man.
Yep.
Okay. Yep, we're gonna have to do that now.
Yep.
I'm like 90% as of 2 years ago, it was up on Blog Talk Radio. Sportsaholics
Nice.
24/7 on Blog Talk Radio.
Nice. That's
Yes, we will
awesome.
definitely have to look that up and hear some and hear some of your takes from back then.
I was probably wrong on all of them.
You know what? I feel that. I know exactly how that goes.
Even to this day, I'm a bad prognosticator. People will ask me, "Oh, who do you think is going to win this game?" And I have no idea. I genuinely don't know. Like
Mhm.
I just like to sit and talk about the games. I'm
Yeah.
not good at predicting.
Nice.
Well, I also find it really interesting that you also went in for international politics. Can you talk a little bit about what drove you to also get a degree in international politics?
Well, as I said before, I've always had this interest in the world and how people and countries interact. Um, I don't think I really ever, even when I was going into college, ever had a plan to pursue that as a career since I knew I wanted to do broadcast journalism. So it was kind of almost for fun. Like I had to get either a second major or a minor. So I figured if I love this international politics so much, I might as well just take classes on it. And it was an absolute blast. It exposed me to so many new things. And I'm sure we'll talk about this a little later on, but like outside of sports, I'm all about politics and world affairs. I listen to podcasts and watch shows all the time on that stuff. So I guess that's kind of where it came from. Just the lifelong interest I've had in the world and how countries interact with each other. And I loved my college experience studying two completely different things.
That's awesome. And while you were at Penn State, was there ever a moment where maybe you were trying to combine both of those majors together, or you were maybe doing a student internship where you thought to yourself, yeah, this is definitely the right field for me?
I did a lot of internships while I was at Penn State. I didn't do anything in the international politics side of things, but in terms of broadcasting, I interned at local TV stations. I was very active with the student radio station at Penn State. That's where I got by far the most experience broadcasting in college. And that is where I truly realized, okay, this is awesome. I guess the moment that I really was like, okay, this is it, was when I broadcast my first Penn State football game. I grew up a diehard Penn State fan. My dad went there. I've been going to games there since birth. And to be up in the press box at Beaver Stadium, it's the fourth largest stadium in the entire world. Uh, it was unbelievable. So that moment was really special for me. And I think just all the experiences I had in college, uh, not only showed what path I want to pursue, but also what I didn't want to pursue. You know, like I said, I did some things with local television, and I had fun. I enjoyed the people that I worked with, but I realized, you know, I don't know if I want to go down that path. I want to stick with play by play. So yeah, I guess it helped me not only find what I want to do, but also what I don't want to do.
So yeah, what after graduating from Penn State and getting your degree, what was the biggest hurdle that you had to jump over um, as you were coming out of college?
I think the industry in general is super competitive and challenging, and you have to be willing to move to random places. And that's what I did when I graduated college. So I grew up in North Jersey, just outside of New York City. I went to a college in Penn State with 45,000 students. And after graduating, I took a job at a Division II college in the middle of nowhere, North Carolina, this small town called Pembroke, North Carolina, as I forget what my exact title was, but something like director of broadcasting for UNC Pembroke. It was a complete culture shock, different than anything I ever experienced, but I loved it. It the work experience was fantastic, but also just learning about the people who live there, learning about the community, living in a different state, different part of the country. It was really cool. Pembroke is basically like the main town of the Lumbee tribe, which is a Native American tribe in that area. So to live with the Lumbee tribe, learn about their culture and history was super cool. Opened my eyes to a lot of things, and then just to from the working side of things, I was able to get my hands in a lot of different baskets, doing play-by-play, production, podcasting, video editing. So it was a perfect experience for me, but like it was tough. I think just adjusting to living in a place that was so drastically different than any place I'd ever been before was my biggest hurdle, I think.
And soon after taking that position, COVID hits
Yeah.
and the sports industry shuts down. So, a person in sports media, broadcast journalism, what do you during that time?
Well, unfortunately, there wasn't much money to be made in sports broadcasting at that time, so I did a lot of DoorDash, which was, is what it is. It was a good way to make some money, and I like driving around and listening to podcasts, so it worked out well. But beyond that, I was involved with a lot of different, um, they were like Zoom groups, group learning sessions, I guess you can call them, with a couple of different groups of people. We would hop on a Zoom every week and talk about broadcasting, ways to better ourselves. We would connect with people. And the guy who really led the group that I was involved in is somebody who you two may know of, Dave Leno. He is a play-by-play broadcaster for the Union. He had done a lot of their TV stuff with JP De La Camera, a lot of their studio stuff, and now he's the radio voice where he calls matches with Sebastian Letou, which is pretty awesome. Dave is the man. He's been, first of all, just an amazing mentor and friend. But during the pandemic, he really stepped up and helped out a lot of broadcasters with these Zoom sessions. And in addition to that, I tried to stay active in broadcasting by having a show on the same platform that you all are on now, StreamYard. And it was, I think, just called the John Gross Show. And I would interview these people from the industry about their careers. And one of the really cool things about that time, like obviously everything about COVID sucked. That year and a half stretch where things shut down absolutely sucked. But the one advantage in my eyes was that I was able to connect with people in this industry who were high up because they had nothing to do either. So I had some pretty cool people on my show. I had Tim Brando on my show, one of the foremost names in college athletics. Dave Revson, who is, I'm lucky to call a mentor from Big Ten Network. He's amazing. Jessica Holtz, who is an NBA agent. She is awesome. So for all of them to have time to come on my show, I don't think that would have been possible outside of that COVID era. So that's how I kept busy.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is. So, I mean, obviously, COVID sucks and nobody wants COVID to come around again. So, do you have any kind of tips or advice for anybody that may be sitting here and thinking about going into sports broadcasting and hoping to find a similar level of success that you have?
Absolutely. I think there are a couple of things. And if I could just add one more thing from the COVID time, which I think is helpful for anybody, and it's still to this day helpful for me. Uh, if you remember, fall of 2020, most college sports were pushed back to the spring of 21. So all of these colleges have an overload of games and not enough people to work the games. At that time, I was still working at UNC Pembroke. They were generous enough to keep me on staff. And in the spring, when these Division I schools in the Carolinas needed broadcasters, I reached out and I got a couple of opportunities. And that's how I got a foot in the door. And from there, it's just been chipping away, knocking on some more doors and building out. And that's all to say that you need to do everything you possibly can to get a foot in the door somewhere and just get an opportunity. I think the most important thing early on in careers is getting reps. Like I'm 4 years into this as a pro, and I have such a long way to go. And getting reps as a broadcaster is so valuable. Unlike other majors, other fields, other disciplines, you can't get better by just sitting in a classroom and learning about it. You have to go out and do it. So I'd say to anybody who wants to get into this field, number one, go for it. Number two, get as many reps as possible. And number three, just keep searching for opportunities and just grind, because it's not easy. The hours are long, but in my eyes, it's the best job in the world.
And you actually give back to your industry as well, because you are part of an organization that has a camp for future broadcasters.
Yes. Yep. I've been a camp counselor for the last 2 summers at the play-by-play sports broadcasting camps. And I know I mentioned this to you before we got on air, but you know your stuff, Rich. You did a lot of research on this. Awesome. Yeah. So for the last 2 summers, I've been a counselor with them, and they go around the country and teach young up-and-coming broadcasters about this field. And I got in with them last summer. I've done 4 different camps with them. And it's so rewarding to be able to give back and help the next generation. That's something I try to do, whether it's with kids at a camp or people who may reach out to me about, advice and how to get into this field, because there are people who have helped me get to where I am, and there are people who will help me get to where I'm hopefully going. So I think this is an industry where, you know, no one makes it by themselves. So you get help, you have to help other people. I just find that to be an absolutely crucial thing to kind of me as a person, giving back to this industry.
And you're giving geography lessons along the way.
Exactly. Exactly.
I needed it. He didn't.
That's
I will
awesome.
say this to add to the whole geography, international politics discussion. There are sometimes situations where it's helpful in my broadcasting, just the context. Like I don't talk about politics on air or rivalries between certain, maybe rivalries in sports between countries, but nothing about religion and stuff like that. But it does help me in terms of the context of sporting events. I mean, let's say, for example, if I'm broadcasting, not that this would probably ever happen, but like the Old Firm, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's religion based. Or if you have two countries that have a history with each other, then there's more on the table than just the game itself. So I think in that way it has helped a little bit.
Yeah. Real Madrid, Barcelona. There's a lot of
Exactly.
stuff there. Yeah. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So just kind of talking a little bit more about actually broadcasting sports in general. Obviously, there are people that say they have a voice for radio or a voice for broadcasting, and you are obviously are one of those people who have a really good broadcasting voice. Is that something that you were had to kind of find and create, or was it just something that came naturally to you?
I definitely had to find it. If you listen back to some of my old broadcasts from when I was in college, sounded so bad. I'll have to send some to you guys after this, but it was just awful. Um, when I was in college, I connected with a guy in the theater department at Penn State, and he was a voice coach, and I took some lessons with him. Super helpful, really helped me find my voice. And as he explained it, everybody has a voice that's inside them, a deeper voice, a voice that allows them to project more. It's just about accessing that. So that's number one. And then number two, one of my main mentors, a guy from ESPN named Judson Birch. Shout out Judson. He's the best. He suggested that I try an improv class, improvisational acting. So I did that last fall. I think that helped me with projecting my voice and also with just broadcasting in general and working with an analyst. Because have either one of you ever done an improv class before?
No, but I want to. It sounds
Right.
fun.
Yeah, I
Do
have
it.
not.
It is an absolute blast. The overarching theme of improv acting is yes and. It's taking whatever comes your way and dealing with it and making something out of it. So it was super applicable for broadcasting because I don't know what's about to happen in the broadcast, or I don't know what my broadcast partner is about to say. It's about how I react to it. So those two things I think really helped me find my voice in a literal sense, but also in a figurative sense, as I've grown. And it's still something I work on all the time, improving in terms of how I sound, improving in terms of how I react to things on air.
Do you ever do vocal exercises before broadcasts or do like the tongue twisters?
I don't do tongue twisters. If what I will say is that there are some names that can be tongue twisters, so I'll practice those names to get those out of the way. Um, most of it just comes down to breathing and being relaxed. The biggest thing that I learned in that voice class was that like throughout the day we have so much stress and tension being built up in our body. Think about this: when you wake up in the morning, that's when your voice is the deepest, right? Because you're relaxed, you're chilling, you just got up, you don't have any work emails to worry about, you haven't been sitting in traffic, you're not stressed, you're chilling. So it's about releasing that stress, relaxing, breathing through your diaphragm, and and yeah, just doing some breathing techniques. So that's what I'll do prior to some broadcasts. And then also there's some times where maybe my voice feels a little bit raw, feeling a little bit under the weather, or I've done 4 games in 4 days, and I have this spray that I use, kind of like I don't know, maybe a chloroseptic, I think it is, that helps that as well.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the morning stuff with the low voice because that's when I record all my Barry White albums.
It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect for that.
Yeah, we've been trying to get Rich a job reading books on tape, so we think he's got that kind of voice.
Absolutely.
So
go for it.
we need to get those going right when he wakes up. He just needs to have a script in front of him just to read off.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've done some voiceovers, but I haven't done any like voice acting. I've submitted some stuff, but I haven't gained any like contracts just yet.
Well, keep pushing. You'll get there. I have no doubt. You have a great voice, so keep it up.
Thank you.
Of
So
course.
over in the live chat, Ranting Blue Penguin Media, that's Tim, our friend of the show.
Hello, Tim.
Tim wants to let us know that he thinks every show that we did was an improv class. So it's pretty close to that. We have a outline that Rich puts together, but yeah, we've gotten to the point where we riff quite a bit more than we used to, for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But that makes it more entertaining, right? Makes it more fun for you guys and for the listeners, I think.
Yeah.
It's great.
We hope
It's
so
true.
anyway. So can you kind of talk about what your reaction was to being offered the opportunity to go into like the professional level of sports as opposed to doing things more on the collegiate side?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, like, I absolutely love college sports. I love working in college sports. But on the professional side, this is their livelihood. You have people who literally putting food at the table depends on how well they perform. So everything is much higher stakes, and to me, that also forces me to elevate my game. So that's super important to me. That, I mean, every broadcast I do, college or pro, I'm putting 110% effort into preparing and performance on air. But that's something I always think about. And then I guess just my reaction at the moment was just, I'm honored. I really feel grateful for every opportunity that I have, whether it's pro, whether it's I do some high school sports when I'm back in North Carolina. Every game I do, I'm grateful. So yeah, I think just being grateful for every opportunity. That's my reaction for every game that I get offered to do.
Has the industry ever changed into, okay, this is a job versus getting up, being super excited to go to work, and this is exactly what you want to do, you're loving life?
I can honestly say that I've never once rolled out of bed the day of a game and said, "Oh, I have to broadcast tonight." Never once. And if that day ever does come, there's something wrong that's happened. But I consider myself so lucky in that regard, to work in a profession that allows me to be, happy with my job. I guess the downside of what I do is I'm a freelancer. So I have to keep track of all of my expenses. I have to file, different taxes. I have a bunch of these W-9s, 1099s, 1040s, I think. I don't know, a whole bunch of numbers, which, as we talked about before, numbers maybe not my strong suit. That's the biggest downside. But other than that, when it comes to simply broadcasting games, it's great. It just feels like I'm talking about sports, and that is what it is. But like, it's fun. I do that with my friends for no money. So when I get paid to do it, it's even better.
So just, I know we kind of touched upon it a little bit with some of your mentors and some of your influences, but can you kind of talk to who your biggest influencers were growing up in obviously the sports broadcast world?
Yeah, growing up, I grew up in New Jersey. Big New Jersey Nets fan. Remember them? New Jersey
Oh
Nets
yes,
back in the day. I
Jason
grew up.
Kidd.
Jason
Jason
Kidd,
Kidd.
Kenyon Martin, RJ, Vince
Yep.
Carter a little later on. That was my first exposure to sports. I remember I was 4 years old, went to my first preseason game. That was my first NBA game. Loved it. Was been hooked ever since. And Ian Eagle, for pretty much all of my life, has been the TV voice of the Nets. So he's one of my biggest influences, without a doubt. Chris Fowler, who does college football for ESPN, huge influence. I'm a diehard college football fan, massive influence. And then, man, I mean, God, there's so many broadcasters I love. Soccer, I love watching all the different types of broadcasters. If they're a Spanish speaking broadcaster, it's a completely different style of broadcasting than a British or American broadcaster. So I take a little bit from all of those different styles. I love watching and listening to other USL broadcasters, Mike Watts, Joe Malfa, Josh Eastern. I'm sure I'm forgetting some amazing people, but there are so many. And I try to watch as many different games as I can and just listen and take what I like from those people and kind of make it my own.
So as you take those influences and bring them into your own style, in the moment when there's something huge happening,
Mhm.
how do you balance the madness of the moment with your narration of what's happening?
That is a great question. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges of broadcasting. When I was younger, I would always try to say something super memorable or catchy that I thought people were going to love. And as I've grown and as I've talked to people in this industry, the key is to say something and then lay out, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. And for those listening who may not know what laying out means, it means say something and then shut up. Let the pictures tell the story. Because especially in a sport like soccer, the emotion of the athletes, the passion of the fans, that says more than anything that I could say on a broadcast. So it's about getting in there when there is a big moment, getting in there, doing the moment justice, giving the context, and then get out.
I love
That's
that.
how I view it. And listen, there are people who view it differently as well. There are people who will always talk and over big plays. But my thought on it is just to say it and get out.
When you were younger, what were some of your catchphrases?
I don't know if I had catchphrases per se, but I just always felt like I had to be be on the moment and just say a million and one things that people would remember. I'm trying to think if there's
So
anything.
no boom goes the dynamite.
No, boom goes the dynamite, but that is one of the greatest bits of sports broadcasting of all.
And I went to the U.S. Open Cup with between Union Omaha and Chicago. I was there with Chip from Walkin' 90, and we went to meet up with a couple of Chicago Fire fans at a bar before kickoff. And we met up with somebody, and she told us that Tyler was going to be showing up. And we thought, well, I mean, that's cool. I mean, I don't know who Tyler is, but cool. Well, Tyler Terrens, the voice of Chicago Fire, uh, came over to the bar to chat with Fire fans and hang out before kickoff before he went over to Soldier Field. And I remember very distinctly talking to her. And then as soon as he walked in, all he said was, "Hi, I'm Tyler Terrens." And I turned, and I mean, we're in a sports bar, like there's TVs playing, there's music, there's people talking, and his voice, just like you were talking about, you find that deep voice that amplifies. And I swear it was like an organ playing in a church. It just his voice just rang off every single wall in that bar. And I just turned to him and thought, holy crap. crap, this guy is amazing. I can see why he's the voice of Chicago Fire.
Absolutely. Tyler. So I have a funny story as well with Tyler that I just found out about recently. First of all, incredible broadcaster. I was actually just talking to him a couple of days ago. I recently found out that my grandmother, who might be watching this, shout out grandma if you're watching, she was Tyler's Hebrew school principal. Hebrew school is like Sunday school for Jewish people growing up. She was his Hebrew school principal when he was very little. So she's known him forever. And
That's
and
crazy.
when I told her that, she was like, "Oh, of course I remember Tyler. He was a great kid." And now here he is as one of the best soccer broadcasters in the U.S.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
That I mean, it's definitely a small world. Like
It,
it's huge, yes, but random things like that make it feel so small.
yes, it is crazy.
So I know we've kind of talked about some of your influences and some of the announcers or personalities that you like listening to. So I guess my next question would be is if you could mix a sport and a specific broadcaster, who would you have call that sport? Like mine in particular, I would love to see Mike Breen from the NBA. And if anybody doesn't know, he's the one that yells bang every time on a 3-pointer. I would love to see him call something like wrestling or soccer. I would love to see either of those things because I think it would just be hilarious to see.
Do darts, man.
Darts would be
Darts.
great as well.
Oh, that's a good one. This is a great question, and that is an awesome answer you gave. I think I'd have to go with Iron Eagle because he's similar to Breen in that he does a great job of like really just enunciating on those big calls, and he just makes it feel bigger than it is. And he's also so fun. Iron Eagle calling golf, that would be pretty
Ooh,
entertaining, I think.
Yes.
yeah.
And then Peter Drury, who personally is my favorite soccer broadcaster, him calling American football. I mean, him calling anything I think would be great to listen to, but him calling American
Definitely.
football would be interesting.
I would go with Andres Cantor doing like poker.
Poker. Yes.
I was actually just before this, I was showing my girlfriend his call of the winning penalty kick in the World Cup and the passion that he showed. Like
Oh, yeah.
that is one of the single best calls of all time. I think that, and then Peter Drury's call of Roma have risen from their ruins. Manolos, the Greek god.
Yeah.
Those two are probably my favorite calls. And the crazy story about the second one, the Drury call, going back to the whole catchphrase thing, he didn't have that planned. I heard an interesting interview with him. He said that when he said Roma have risen from their ruins, he only said that because he didn't know who had scored the goal. He said that to fill time. And then after he said it, he found out that it was Menelaus and the Greek god in Roma, which was just
That's
beautiful.
awesome.
Yeah.
Drury also had the Wayne Rooney bicycle kick. He had Sergio Aguero's goal in the final dying seconds. I mean, he has had some amazing calls over the years.
He
Just
has.
iconic.
Did he have I think 2010 World Cup South Africa, a goal for South Africa, a goal for all of Africa? I think that might have been him as well.
Ooh, that could be
Yeah.
him.
Either way, he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
You know, I honestly like some of the greatest like plays that you hear. I really feel like when you watch, just because we talked about darts is insane when
Yeah.
those announcers they find a different level every time they do something like that. Every time you hit a 180, just exactly like Tim said in the chat, 180 or a perfect 9-darter, there's really nothing better than that as far as broadcasting, in my opinion, goes.
A lot of energy, that's for sure.
So you mentioned that you're a big basketball fan. It's been a huge influence on you, college football as well. Is there any style of broadcasting that appeals to you more?
Like in terms of the way that a sport is broadcast?
Sure, and the way that they're called by the commentators.
Um, that's tough. That's so tough because the sports are all they're so different. Like baseball compared to basketball, compared to soccer, are all so different. I really like the tempo of basketball. That's a lot of fun. I love soccer just because it's nonstop. I mean, you have one break in the middle of the match, and other than that, you're rolling for 45 to 50 minutes at a time, which is great. Football's fun. Football is really tough because you have like these quick bursts of insane action, and then 20 to 30 seconds of nothing, which is challenging. And then baseball, I'm sorry if there are any baseball fans out there watching this. It's just a little too slow for me. I like broadcasting it because I'm kind of involved in it, but I struggle to watch a game, and just it's slow. So I guess not baseball, but any other sport, pretty much. I'm really big into. I don't discriminate. I like all of them.
You have to fill a lot of airtime with stories.
You do. And speaking of great broadcasters, Vin Scully.
Oh
Vin
yeah.
Scully, one of the best of all time. And what makes what he did so impressive was the fact that he was solo all the time for baseball.
Yeah.
that's crazy. Vin was an absolute legend.
He was, yeah.
Definitely. So kind of getting more into what you're currently doing as for USL and stuff like that. The friend of the podcast and also a USL play-by-play commentator, Ross Davenport, posted a picture of his stat sheet to social media not too long ago. What information do you personally include on that stat sheet?
I will actually show you in 1 second. I left this in my other room when I moved.
It's going to be a good one, man.
Here we go. So everybody prepares a little bit differently, but what I do, and I do this for every sport, and it's different based on the sport, but I make what's called a spotting chart. And I'll show you. This is from a Richmond versus Tormenta match earlier in the season. And it's blurry. Let me turn off this blur if I can do that.
I use the same thing on my screen, so I get it.
I'm not even sure how to. Do you know how to turn this blur off?
I use NVIDIA Broadcast, so I don't know if it's on.
Okay. Well, I'll do my best with this. Keep it central. So I have. So this is Richmond, for example. I have everybody who may play, all of their individual stats listed: appearances, starts, goals, assists. I have their hometown, their heights, their positions. I have individual notes here on the players. So I have what they did last match. I have any recent trends, goal in 3 straight matches, whatever it may be, or are they leading the league in assists, leading the Golden Boot race? Then I have like personal info about every player. So let's see, I'll give you an example. Chris Cole, for example, he trialed in 2021. He commuted over 2 hours from Virginia Beach to Richmond while trying to secure his first pro contract. So those are the type of notes that I have. And I have those for every player. And I have like key information highlighted in yellow, extra key information highlighted in green. The blue, you can see those are coach quotes. So I speak with the coaches. I'm sorry, this is a little blurry, but I speak with the coaches. I have some notes here from Darren talking about that player. And then on the side, I have team notes as well. And then I have the full-on generic coach quotes going down the side. I have on the top their record. I have what they did last season, info about the head coach. And then I also have like some team stats down here and what's coming up next in their schedule as well. So I do that for every team. And, I would say 70% of the info that I have on there, I actually don't mention on air just because there might not be a chance, or maybe a guy won't play. But you have to be prepared. Like, I'll give an example. Last match I did, Jimmy Villalobos scored for One Knox against Chattanooga. So, I knew he played for Chattanooga previously. And when he scored, I was quickly able to mention scores against his former club. So it's moments like that when you have to know to fit in those storylines. But yeah, that's what I have on my charts. And again, everybody does it a little bit differently.
So Brian and I spend a lot of time on our outline on a weekly basis. I know that I do more statistical stuff. Brian does a lot more, eye test type stuff. How long does it take you to make that sheet?
So it depends. If I've done these clubs before and I have the players with their name and info and coaching info and all that stuff, it typically takes me about 2 hours per team. But if I haven't done it yet, probably to build all of it start to finish, like 3 to 4 hours per team, and that includes the coach calls as well and listening back to it. So it's a lot. And I think in general the rule of thumb is 2 hours of prep for every hour that you're on air. That's for most sports, and I'd say that's pretty true for how I prep for soccer as well.
Cool.
And so when you're going through and doing the research and stuff that you do you listen to any fan-led media or anything like that to help kind of inform some of the information you're going to put in, or inform some of the opinions you're also going to put into the broadcast?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I always want to be in tune with what the fans are saying, not to necessarily like echo their sentiment on air, but just to get a gauge on what they're feeling. So I'll listen to the overarching league shows. You guys walking 90. I listen to some team specific stuff. Flock Talk, River City, El Fuego, I'm sure I'm forgetting a lot of them. But yeah, like in the lead up to matches, I will listen to a lot of these podcasts, and especially earlier in the season when I'm still trying to get familiar with some of the changes on these teams and I haven't seen these teams yet. I'll listen to a lot of these shows to just get a gauge on like what the expectations are. What is the vibe in Madison, Wisconsin? Are they happy with how they're performing, or are they not so happy? I'd imagine this season they've been pretty happy. Yeah, so I listen to a lot of these shows, and to anybody out here who does have a show, like, keep it up. People are listening. I'm listening. We're all listening. So keep it up. You all do really, really good work, and important work at that.
Well, thank you very much. We all very appreciate that a lot. That means a lot to us.
Of course.
And when you were talking about that stat sheet, you also mentioned there's a midweek meeting with the coaches that you're going to be covering that weekend. What are those meetings like?
Yeah, so those are really important. I talk for, it varies, 15 to 20, 30 minutes with each head coach, and I'll have some typical questions, their thoughts on their previous match, what they've been focusing on in training that week and in the lead up to that specific opponent, um, things of that nature. But I'll also do research before those calls to have more pointed questions. Okay, this guy's been playing really well as of late. What has led to his recent uptick in production? Or you guys have conceded corner kick goals in back-to-back matches. How much of an emphasis are you putting in that in training? And how are you trying to fix that? So those calls are crucial. And I want to give a lot of credit to the coaches who I speak with in League One and USL Championship. They tend to give really good insight, and it makes my job a lot easier. So shout out to the coaches, shout out to the communication staffs as well for setting those calls up. But man, those are instrumental to having a good broadcast.
So when you're kind of going through and figuring out the storylines and things that you're going to talk about during the match or during those lulls in the action, Is there any particular storyline that you look forward to that piques your interest the most that you would like to talk about most on the broadcast?
I mean, it's always fun when teams are battling near the top of the table. That's always a good one. Battle for first place. I love the derbies. I love. I mean, listen, there are sometimes matches that don't have those big storylines, so you have to go out and find the storylines too. Um, to me, it's just about what what can sell this broadcast. I think anytime there's like any big storyline for a broadcast, I will always throw that in the intro to let people know early on. Hey, this is what's at stake. Last match I did, it was the Smoky Mountain Smackdown. I mentioned something about that. A chance to claim the first installment of the Smoky Mountain Smackdown series, or a battle for first place in wherever. So yeah, it's just about finding that good storyline and doing it justice. And I think it's also important to repeat it throughout the broadcast. So I know you guys are the type of guys to sit through and watch the full 90 minutes, but there are some people who maybe are tuning in for just a couple of minutes here and there. So you have to repeat the storylines. So I apologize to you guys if it gets a little redundant hearing me say the same things over and over, but there's a reason for it.
Only if it's slander against our team.
I never slander. I will rarely, if ever, give my opinion on what I'm seeing out there. I just like to say it as it is. I'll leave that, if I'm working with an analyst, I leave that to the analyst.
Nice.
And so we have a question from Tim, Ranting Blue Penguin Media, in the live chat, and feel free, if you don't feel comfortable answering, you could always say I don't feel comfortable answering or whatever, and no worries. Tim would like to know if you listen to other USL broadcasts, and if so, do you think you and your peers are doing really well? And if there is anything to improve, what would you like to see improved?
I'm not going to speak for everyone because I don't watch every broadcast. I do watch other broadcasts. I'll speak for myself though. I know personally, I'm always trying to get better. There are mistakes I make. I'll give an example. Last week I watched back, and I try my best to watch back every broadcast I do, or at least the highlights of them. Last week I noticed that there was a word that I was saying way too many times. So I got home and I literally made a list on my phone of 10 different ways that I could say that same thing, but in a different way, so I can mix it up. So that's what I do. And I'll say, like, I'm not perfect for sure. I mean, I'm still early on in my career. I'm always striving to be better. Yeah, just, I'm never satisfied. And I'm sure that every other broadcaster, not just in, this league, but everywhere, the best of the best are always trying to get better. So yeah, hopefully
So
that.
speaking of things that we would like to improve on, last week when I said that we were going to be interviewing you, I said we were going to be interviewing John Green. In my head, I 100% said John Gross. When you have those moments, what do you do to try to limit or eliminate those altogether?
Yeah. Um, you know, if there's something happens on air where I mess up, I will issue, a retraction, an apology. Hey, sorry, this is the correct information, and then just try to do better. And I think mistakes do happen. We're humans. I know there's AI out there. Listen, maybe AI can do a better job. I don't know. Hopefully not. Otherwise, I have to use that international politics degree of mine if AI doesn't become good enough to broadcast. But no, I think it's just about watching back your stuff, critiquing yourself, getting better. If you make a mistake, address it. It's happened to me where I've said the wrong name, and I'll go back and change it. It's and I trust me, nobody feels worse about it than I do. Like, I take it hard. I used to be harder on myself than I am now. like I'm harder on myself now in terms of critiquing myself, but I used to be really hard on myself in terms of feeling just like absolutely awful about myself. Now I just work on it and try to shake it off and move on to the next broadcast. But I think the overarching theme, this question and going back to the last question, is just always trying to get better and realizing that I'm never satisfied.
Yeah, given the fact that I said your name in the closing 30 seconds of the episode, I felt absolutely horrible.
Well, it's okay because I'll say two quick things. I mentioned one of these before we got on air, but my mom's last name starts with Green, actually. So, and one of her nicknames, I guess, is Green. So, so that's not too bad. And then number two, you're comparing me to a great author, John Green,
John Green. Yeah,
right?
I did it on purpose.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
hold you in such high esteem that's where you're at.
John Green. I remember when I was probably in either middle school or early high school, I watched that movie, The Fault in Our Stars. Ever
Oh
hear
yeah,
that one?
yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, I went to the movies. It was myself, three of my best friends. We were the only guys in the entire theater, and like it was such a good movie. I was crying at the end of it.
Mhm.
But John Green, great author. So trust me, I was not offended.
Good.
Yeah, and I feel that too because I'll go back and I'll listen to every podcast that we do, and I'll listen in and try to find ways where I maybe can, oh, I can interject in here a little bit better, or I should do this differently. And I still, to this day, cannot stand the sound of my voice. When I listen to myself back, it is that something that just comes with time? Or have you ever gotten over hearing your own voice on the broadcast?
uh, I don't know about like getting over it. It's definitely easier than it once was. Um, but it's just a necessity of being in this industry that I have to go back and rewatch and listen to my broadcasts. It's the only way that I can get better. So I guess at this point, I wouldn't say I'm over it, but I'm used to it.
It's a valid point.
Yeah.
Okay, so since we talked about mistakes, let's talk about things that we're most proud of. What's your most treasured soundbite?
Most treasured soundbite. Like a single call that I had that I think was that like I really
Yeah,
enjoy. Okay.
yeah. What's your
I
boom
guess
goes the dynamite?
um that's a really good question. I think I know a couple from last year when I did some. There were two NWSL moments that I had that were really special. One was when I had the honor of calling a Megan Rapinoe goal. She's the best,
Mhm.
and that was super special. And then another was Angel City versus Gotham. There was like an amazing nutmeg, and she had a pretty crazy goal, just kind of towing the byline, and somehow scored. And that I thought that was a fun call. Probably those two. I'm trying to think if there's anything else super memorable. I mean, I've had like games that I remember, but in terms of specific calls, I don't know. I haven't had that. I haven't had like that buzzer beater moment yet. I think when I get like a buzzer beater or like a game winner at the death in like a playoff match, something like that, that'll probably be the memorable moment.
So, just talking about having these things that you want to have be memorable moments, do you have any sound bites that you have planned for these moments, or is it going to be just something that comes out completely naturally?
Nothing is the only thing that I plan on the broadcast is the open. I don't type up a script per se, but I have an idea of what I want to say. And of course, if I'm working with an analyst, I'll go through that with them ahead of time. We have the rundown of what the elements will be in the open ahead of time. So I'll come up with a question to lead them into whatever you're all seeing on screen. But yeah, when it comes to the match itself, once the whistle blows, I don't have any sort of scripted things. Some people do. Mike Breen says bang. A
Yep.
lot of people have their catchphrases, and they do a great job of it. I've heard the people who have their catchphrases, they didn't go into it trying to have that like as their thing. I think Mike Breen, I hope I don't butcher the story, but I heard this on a great episode of Old Man of the Three. It's JJ Reddick's podcast.
Oh yeah, it's a
And
great one.
sorry to promote another podcast on your podcast, but they do a really good job. Just like
I listen to that
just
one
like
too.
you guys do. Yeah, great show. And I think he said something along the lines of he just said it in a game, or he was like saying with friends, and one of his friends was like, "Oh, you should use that. That's a great line," and that was it. I might be butchering that a little bit, but it was basically it kind of came naturally. So no, I don't force anything. I don't have anything scripted. I guess the only time that I will occasionally have an idea of what I want to say of an occurrence that happens during a match is if there is some sort of milestone that might be reached in that game. Then I have to know going into it, not necessarily word for word what I'm going to say, but I at least have to have that in the back of my head that this player can do this thing in this game, and this is the context that goes with it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Jim Nance, I think the story behind Hello Friends, whenever he says friends, I think the story that I heard in an interview one time was that whenever he says the word friends, he's actually saying like hello to his dad. And so
Oh,
instead of saying hello dad, he always says hello friends, but then it just
That's
became
cool.
this whole inclusive thing.
that is amazing.
Yeah.
I will say that I've had a couple broadcasts, not really recently, but I guess I did have one kind of recently for my grandparents' anniversary. But over the years, I'll have some fun with a couple of friends, and they'll text me to say a word on a broadcast as like kind of a shout out to them,
Yeah.
and I'll have to weave it in. So the last one I did was for my grandparents for their anniversary, so I got that in. Hey, if you two ever have any suggestions for words you want said in a broadcast, hit me up. I'm all ears.
What was the word
As
for
long as
tonight?
it's PG. That's all I ask.
Yeah.
What was the word for tonight?
The word for tonight. Oh, well, I didn't have one for tonight, but my
Oh,
grandparents
okay.
gave me one for broadcast I did, I guess a couple weeks ago or a month ago. But no, unfortunately, nothing for tonight. You know what? Maybe that should be a thing. Next time you have a guest on, have people submit to that person a word they have to
Yeah.
weave in, and then you two have to guess what the word is.
Ooh,
Ooh,
I
I
like that
love
idea.
that.
That is really good.
Ooh,
There you go.
John, I
Yeah.
love it. Okay, that's in.
New
That's in from now
segment.
on.
That's perfect. Love it. So I know we're coming up against the hour timeline here. But I do know that.
I'm in no rush, so
Oh,
I'm here
okay.
good as long as you two need me.
Yeah,
This
perfect.
is
So,
a
all right.
blast.
Well, we've got a few more questions here to work with. So if you're good with going some more, we can ask a few more.
Absolutely.
So no, with all of the actual coverage that you're providing right now, I mean, you do USL, NWSL, CONCACAF, everything like that. How do you stay in the know, or how do you go through and be in the know with all of these different leagues that you're currently involved with?
Absolutely. So this summer has been League One, USL Championship, and MLS Next Pro, and I had NWSL and CONCACAF last summer. So both summers that I've been working in pro soccer, I've had like 3 or 4 different leagues to deal with, which has been a blessing and also a challenge. I think you have to realize that you are not going to be able to keep track of everything that happens in every league. You have to be able to obviously know the ins and outs of what's happening in the match that you're calling. That's why I have, spotting charts. That helps me there. But then also be familiar with what's going on around the league so that you can mention it on the broadcast. Sometimes they have the live scores that pop up in the corner of the screen during match play. You want to be able to say, oh, wow, that's a surprising result. Or if that result holds, this team in my match will catapult to first place in the table. So the ways that I do that, I will, like I said, I'll listen to a lot of these podcasts around League One and around these leagues, which are super helpful. I will read articles The leagues do a good job of having the team of the week stuff and power rankings, game previews. A lot of these places are in cities that have newspapers or websites who cover them, and that's super helpful. I know, and I'm gonna blank on a lot of these. Madison 365. I read a lot of their stuff when I do Madison matches. There are so
Rob
many.
Chappell.
There's so many that I'm gonna forget, so I don't want to just start listing. But I read a lot of the newspapers online, and just try to just stay as much in the know as I possibly can. But yeah, it's a challenge. You can't know everything that's going on, but you just got to do your best.
And
So
sometimes you have to lean on that other voice that's in the booth with you if you are working with another person. Do you prefer working alone, or do you like having that other person in the booth with you?
I like working with an analyst, no doubt. And working solo is fine, not a problem with it. But I like working with an analyst. Especially the analysts that I've had the honor of working with over these last couple of years, they're so knowledgeable, so unbelievably good. It forces me to elevate my game, and it makes the broadcast in general just way better. They are the experts. They're the ones who can say how and why something's happening. I'm just saying what's happening. I know some people who do solo broadcasts, give some analysis as well. I'll occasionally do that, but I will always prefer to have an analyst on with me and defer to the expert. They know best, no doubt about it.
And so that also kind of comes into another question here from Tim at Ranting Blue Penguin Media. He would like to know if you have a say in when things pop up in the broadcast, or is that all kind of set in the pre-production?
Great question, Tim.
Yeah.
It's a mix of both. There are elements that we know of, that the producer has on hand ahead of time. And I'll go, and this is, not just when I'm doing USL, but this is when I'm doing the college games and all that. It's fairly standard across the board. There are elements that we know of ahead of time. And sometimes we do show those and talk about those if a relevant thing happens in said game. Sometimes we don't. But a lot of times there are things that happen that no one expected to happen. So we have to be ready as broadcasters, and the producers and everybody behind the scenes. They who are absolute, they're all rock stars. They make it happen. Like, they are the stars of the show. Don't let anybody fool you. They're the stars, the people behind the scenes. They have to be ready to create a graphic, to have a replay package ready to go. And when I'm broadcasting, occasionally I will say something to the producer. Like, there's something called talkback. There's a button I press on my audio box that will allow me to talk to the producer, not without going on air. And I'll say, hey, this just happened. I know we have a graphic that says this. I'm going to talk about this. Just want to give you a heads up so you know to pull that graphic up. But most of the time, it's the producer saying, all right, replay coming in 3, 2, 1, or we're about to show this graphic, whatever it may be. I think overall, Tim, the key with putting together a broadcast is communication between the production side of things and the broadcasters. We have to be on the same page so that whether I want to propose something, which again, I don't do that very often, or the analyst wants to propose something, which does happen more often. They may say, hey, let's get a replay of this. I want to give the X's and O's on that. Or what mainly happens is the producer says, hey, let's talk about this. I'm about to show a shot of this person. That's the communication side of it is key.
And while they may be the stars behind the broadcast, they're hearing your voice. Do you find it difficult to carry your singular voice through the entire broadcast?
It's not necessarily for it depends on the sport, I guess. For soccer, it's certainly more doable. A lot of the stuff, some of the stuff we do at halftime maybe is, that kind of gives me a time to rest, right? I have a little bit of a breather there. And it's only an hour and a half, maybe a little over an hour and a half of me actually calling the match itself. Meanwhile, baseball, like you're talking 3 to 4 hours of you talking by yourself, a lot of dead time. I've done it. I did it for a whole summer. That was too much for me. But soccer is it's definitely more doable than baseball.
Nice.
Solo.
And so, if we're talking about specifically soccer, I think right now, is there any time that you would ever like to include like post match interviews with, let's say, players or coaches into the broadcast, or is that something you would be interested in doing?
Absolutely. I think that would be a great thing to have. And like we talked about before, I get to talk with these coaches every week, and you get to hear their passion, their personality. You get to know them a bit. I think to be able to talk to them on camera and have the fans connect to them as well. That would be really cool. I love doing interviews, no doubt about it. And just a chance to showcase coaches or players. Definitely something I would love to do.
Nice. We've talked about the early days of John. We talked about your influences. We talked about you in the booth. Let's talk about the future. Do you want to stay in soccer?
Yes, I love soccer. You look at the structure in American sports. So for most of the year, from let's say early September through early May, I'm doing college sports, and which includes soccer in the fall. But over the summer, you have two main options in the US: baseball and soccer. I tried the baseball thing for a couple of years, and while I absolutely loved the team that I worked for and the people that I was with, it was tough doing a game every day. I think it was about 48 to 50 games in a 60-day stretch. That's a lot. 3 hours to 4 hours each game, most of the time by myself. And soccer is just way. Again, no offense to baseball people, but soccer is way more exciting. It's the beautiful game, and I've really grown to love it as a broadcaster over the last couple of years since I've had the opportunity to call soccer in this league and collegiately as well. So I hope to continue for a very long time in this sport.
So, just going over, I mean, I know you're doing the actual broadcasting of games and matches. Is there ever a time in your career that you would like to move into directing these things or editing them, or are you more comfortable and want to stay as a broadcaster and stay quote unquote in front of the camera?
Definitely want to stay in front of the camera as a broadcaster. What goes on behind the scenes is incredible. And for anybody who's ever worked in television or has seen what goes on in a production truck or in a studio, they've seen how much of a collaborative effort it is and how much work goes into it. So the utmost respect to everyone behind the scenes, but I'm focused on staying on camera for as long as I can. That's what I'm hoping to do. But I've done some production things. I do video editing as well on the side, make a couple of videos, things like that. Actually, most of the videos that I do make for video editing outside of broadcasting is for high school soccer players to get recruited by colleges.
Oh, nice.
Very
Pretty
cool.
That's really nice of you to do. Well, let's dangle the golden carrot then, or the golden ticket for you then. You have the option of covering the World Cup, but you're behind the camera, or you can continue doing USL, NWSL, CONCACAF in front of the camera. Which are you choosing?
Not even a question in my mind. Staying on air.
Nice. All right.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Give me Tormenta Union Omaha on air.
Ooh, all right.
Absolutely.
Are you the
And
one that's calling it this Saturday?
what's up?
Are you calling
No,
it this Saturday?
no, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I'm doing a USL Championship this Saturday, FC
Gotcha.
Tulsa,
Okay.
Tampa Bay. But no, but I just love being on air, and I love this league. You two know it better than most. It is so unique. The way that these matches go down, I talk to coaches about it all the time, especially coaches who are new to this league. They're like, this is unlike anything I've ever coached in, anything I've ever experienced. The way that goals are scored, the way that certain metrics don't matter in this league that do matter very much in other leagues. So I love it. It's an absolute blast, and I'm honored every time I put on the headset to broadcast in this league.
Week in and week out, I want to bang my head on a desk because Brian over there does the eye test, and his predictions are pretty much spot on. Whereas
Wow.
I do all this research into the statistics, and it's almost like I can see what's going to happen, and then they kick off, and all of that goes out the window, and Brian's prediction is spot on, and I just want to like throw like the 52 card pickup and just walk out the room.
Brian, what's the secret? Is it straight up vibes, or is there any logic that goes into it?
I mean, there's a little bit of logic, and it the way I do it, I do look at a little bit of trends and stuff like that, but a lot of times it is just individual matchups and trying to figure out. I mean, watching every single game every week, you kind of get to know what matchups are going to work for what teams and everything like that. And obviously, it changes at the beginning of the season because this season, this league does this every single season. It changes and players come in and out, which is what it's supposed to do. Um, but I mean, it really just, the eye test thing is always something that I kind of just always liked to do as opposed to looking at statistical breakdowns. So, and I think Rich won't say it out loud, but I will, and that Rich does a lot of, if not 99.9% of the work that goes into the show, and I sit here and show up and try to talk and do stuff like that. So I guess Rich would definitely be the analyst if this were a commentary duo.
But don't dare diminish that 0.1%, man, because that 0.1% becomes way bigger than you think it is.
Absolutely. No doubt. And hey, everyone has a different way of being successful. You two go about it a different way, but you both do a great job, and that's it. Whatever works.
Well, thank you. And
Yeah, we
on that
appreciate that.
same, in that same vein, talking about something that works, what do you think USL media could use to enhance its coverage, whether it be from independent coverage like us or from, USL headquarters? What do you think could enhance coverage?
Enhance. I think a lot of these independent media groups and the teams do a really good job. I mean, I'll say what I do really like, and I just would love to continue to see a lot more of as well. And there's already a lot of it out, but I love the player interviews, the coach interviews, the mic'd up segments. I think it was, don't quote me on this, I'm pretty sure it was one of the Madison podcasts just had a player on. I'm totally blanking on who it was.
Talking Clock. They had
Yes, Talking
goalkeeper.
Clock, and who was it?
It was
I'm
the
totally
goalkeeper.
blanking. Oh yes, yeah, it was their backup goalkeeper. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was so fun to listen to those stories. There was a story of something like he was going to work some odd job and then ended up getting a call from Matt right before starting that job. Like those are the things. Those are the type of stories that allow fans to really develop an affinity for these players. I love that. So to those groups who are already doing that, and I know a lot of them are, keep it up. You're doing an awesome job.
So, yeah, I mean, this is going to be USL centric of a question here, but I mean, obviously, you've heard the rumblings of the vote for ProRel to talk about ProRel next month. Um, in your opinion, kind of where do you see the USL ending up in the next 10 to 20 years?
this is probably a cop-out answer, but I really don't know. I think what I'll say is that in general, I see the sport just blowing up. I think it's already on a really nice trajectory, but between what's going to happen in a couple of years when the World Cup is here, and just it's going to blow up. Like, that's it. Fact of the matter is, it's going to blow up. That's really all I have to say on it. I think the USL continues to expand. Super excited about Spokane and Santa Barbara for next season. That's going to be really cool. 14 teams in League One. That is a league record. So congratulations to everybody at the league office for continuing to grow this awesome league and continue to improve the product. I love it, and the popularity just continues to increase.
So let's dive
But
into.
again, in terms of 5 to 10 years, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not good at predicting things, so I don't know. But it's the trajectory the league is on is really great.
Well,
As
clearly
is
I'm not either,
soccer in
so we
America
should be
in general.
depending on Brian for that stuff.
Yeah, we'll turn this question to you, Brian.
It's going up and up and up. That's all I can
absolutely.
say.
There's no doubt about that. It's absolutely going up and up and up. And I just love how the league continues to expand. USL Championship, League One. We'll see what happens with ProRel. Who knows? But I'm extremely optimistic for the future of this league and for the future of soccer in this country.
Nice. Well, we've hammered you with a ton of questions. Let me ask you a question about maybe things that are happening off the field. What do you do to escape the nonstop nature of the sports world?
The nonstop nature of the sports world. I will listen to podcasts and watch YouTube videos about world affairs, politics, news, stuff like that, and play a lot of video games. But those video games are sports video games, so it's not really an escape from sports. But I'm big into NCAA football 14 and FIFA 13. Those are the two games that I play the most for Xbox 360.
Are you willing to throw your screen name out there for everyone to challenge you?
Absolutely.
Ooh, all right.
Keep in mind, I made this when I was probably, 12 years old or so. But It is We Are Penn State and the number 4.
All right. There you go, folks.
Feel free to add me. I don't think FIFA 13 still has an active online server, but I play NCAA football online all the time. I've gotten as high as 83 in the world.
Whoa,
I think right now I'm about 100. But I'm down to play anybody.
Dang, that's confidence right there.
So I gotta ask now: are you excited about the new NCAA football game that's supposed to be coming out?
Oh, I am. I'm cautiously excited about it.
Same.
Right? Listen, is it going to be the Madden engine? Is it going to be NCAA football 14 type of gameplay?
Yep.
That's the question. And my whole dilemma is this. The only gaming console I have is a 360. If I want to get this new game, I have to go out and buy, what is it, the PS5 or the new Xbox.
Yeah.
So that's a big investment between the game and the console.
Mm-hmm.
I have to wait to play the game, make sure that it is what I'm hoping for, and from there, spend a lot of money on a video game. And
you are 100 in the world. You cannot give up that title.
I know.
I mean, you got to put that on your resume.
Yeah, I think that'll get me some jobs. At ESPN, I'm top 100 in the world at NCAA 14. Call me up.
Perfect.
If I will say, if they have a pro league for NCAA football, I'll try out for it. Probably won't be good enough. I've played some of the top 3 to 5 guys in the world. They're next level.
They are very good. Yes.
Yes. Brian, so do you still play NCAA football 14?
I do. I still play 14.
Nice.
I played on PS3.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll do go through and do the modded schedules and the modded lineups and rosters and everything like that as well. So a ton of good work. I mean, these modders right now are insane with the amount of work these guys are putting in. But
To
yes, I
quote
do.
Kevin Durant, they're the real MVPs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And they definitely keep it fresh every time too. It's one of
Yes.
my favorite thing. I mean, anybody that's not an NCAA football fan, I mean, sorry, but like going through, and I think oh, what, I forget his name, but it was the guy on YouTube that went through and did the UGF Pandas as his
Mm.
dynasty. I still one of my favorite YouTube series of all time to see him take a nothing team all the way up to like title contenders.
It's awesome. It's so much fun.
Well, Brian, I mean, I'm out of questions. Are you good?
Yeah, I think we've exhausted our
Yeah.
list that we had put together. So
We have quite a list going too. So
yeah,
I'm I'm man, John, this is amazing that you stuck around to face every single one of those questions. I really appreciate you taking the time to spend some time with us, answer those questions. Um, this has been a ton of fun.
I've enjoyed this. This has been an absolute blast. This is rare for me. Normally, I'm the one asking questions, so it's a bit of a different ball game. But hey, I said it before. Keep up the great job. Not just you two, but all of the content creators across League One, across the soccer and sports landscape in general. Like, you all do an awesome job. I listen. You help me out a ton, and again, I'm grateful for these opportunities I have to commentate in this league, and I'm so optimistic about the future of the USL, and can't wait to see what's in store. But thank you
Awesome.
guys.
Yeah, no problem. And I have a really funny story to tell you, so stay on for just a few more minutes.
Sure, absolutely. And for anybody out there, happy to connect if you want on Twitter, John Gross PXP. Feel free to connect there.
Yep. All right. Well, Brian, if you're good, I'm good.
yeah, I am good.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to another episode of League One on the Rocks. My name is Rich. That is Brian. We will see you next time.